Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss about Playwright project structure. So in the previous video, we have discussed how to install Playwright. Once after installing Playwright, so we are able to see these files, right? So we have node modules, Playwright report, test result, and we have Playwright config file. So let's try to understand what are these files and why do we require these files in our project. Okay, so most of them, what they'll do, they'll not try to understand the basics, they'll directly get into the topic. So that is a mistake that we have to avoid. So first we have to try to understand the basics and then we have to learn the other things. Okay, so let's get started. So the first file that we are going to discuss, or the first folder that we are going to discuss here, that is node modules. So node modules is a folder which contains all the libraries and dependencies that is required for our project. So in example of Playwright, so it will have all the libraries and dependencies which is related to Playwright. Okay. And one more thing is that we will not upload this file to our GitHub repository. So it will be there in our local only. Okay. So let's see what's there inside this node modules. So you can see, so there are some of the dependencies which is related to the Playwright. So Playwright libraries, type, so we have some index file, again it has some other JS files, right? And then, so if you see here also we are able to do the same thing. Playwright core, Playwright type, so it finally, see it has all the libraries, agents, loader, MCP, plugin, reporter, runner, workers. So all these things are present inside your node module. Going forward, if you are adding any other tools, so that library will also be stored inside your node modules, not only Playwright. So all the other dependencies, whatever you are going to add in your project, so those dependencies and libraries will be stored in your node modules file. Next, so we have test file. So by the name itself, it indicates that we are going to write all of our Playwright test files and it will be saved inside your test folder. Okay, so we are going to organize that. There's a common naming convention that we are going to follow in Playwright, that is, we'll give the test case name dot spec dot ts. So if we are using TypeScript, it will be ts, and if you are using JavaScript, then it will be JS. Okay, so this is how we are going to give the name. So we'll understand why do we need to give the spec later on, but this is the convention that we will follow. Okay, so let's see another example. Say login dot spec.ts, homepage spec.ts, checkout spec.ts. So we are going to give the namings of a test file like this. Okay, so now, so under this test folder we have an example spec file which was generated when we install this Playwright tool. So you can see there is something, this line is to navigate and this line is used to validate the page title. So all these things, so don't worry, we'll discuss about this in detail in the upcoming videos. As of now, all of our test files should be kept under this test folder. So they have this example test, so that is also something which is created by Playwright to help us to learn the basics. Okay, next, so the main important file we have here, that is playwright.config file. This is one of the important file that we have to understand why do we need this and how we can use this in our projects. Okay, so basically the name itself indicates that this is a configuration file, okay, that tells your Playwright how to run your test. So for example, so we are going to set the browser settings here. So we are going to mention which browser we have to execute our test. Okay. And we are going to mention the behavior of your test. So when it has to retype, when it has to capture the screenshot, when it has to record the videos. Okay. And another thing is that we are going to specify where the test file are located. Next, even we can control our parallel execution. So this is why we require this playwright config.ts file. So let's see how this is set in this config file. So the first setup, that is browser settings. So now if you open this playwright.config file, and you just have to scroll down for a while, and here you will see that configure project for your major browsers. So under projects we have specified for Chrome it is Chromium, for Firefox the name is Firefox, and this is for Safari we have set as WebKit. So this is where you can configure your browsers, inside which browser your test script has to get executed. Okay, next. So the next thing we have here, that is test behavior. So when it has to take the screenshot, videos and retries. So now if you see this, so you have a trace option. So where you have mentioned on first retry, collect trace when retrying the failure test. Even we can specify how many times it has to execute. So this will work only on CI. Okay, so we have retry option and we can specify that here. Next, so it will define wherever test file is located, right? So now if you see here inside this test directory, we have mentioned that all of our tests, okay, so all of our tests will be present inside test folder. So that is where we can mention that. And then we have parallel execution. So if you see here, so for parallel execution, so it is true. So all test file in parallel, if you are given true, it will get executed in parallel. If you make it as false, then it will not get executed in parallel. Okay, so this is the basic thing that everyone should know when they are starting with a Playwright. So we have package.json file. So this is a main file which contains all the project information. Okay, so it is all about your project and its dependencies. Now if you open that package.json file, so here you can see, so it has our project name, so description is empty, and then you have something called as script. So inside the script we can specify which test I have to execute. Let's say I have to run this example test. Okay, I have to run only this example test. So what we can do here is we can just specify that here. So I can say I'll just give the name here as sample, and then we have to specify the path name. So copy this path, and if you paste it here, okay. So when you are mentioning this path, so even you can simply run with this sample. You can say npm run c. It is by default it is giving an option to run the script, and directly you can trigger this particular script. And so we have installed Playwright, right? So you can see that under dev dependencies, we can see this is the Playwright version that we are using. So that is the use of your package.json file. So we have one more, that is package log.json. This will also contain the same information about your project. Okay, so I'll save this file and then close. Now, so we have the last file, that is dot git ignore. So this file name by itself is indicating that, so whatever the files that we should not push to your GitHub repository. Okay, so those files we are going to mention it here, that we no need to add that in your Git repository. Okay, so it is used to prevent uploading the huge folder like node modules. Okay, and keep sensitive data out of GitHub. So your environment details, DB credentials, all of those things, we are not going to directly push it into your GitHub repository, so that we can mention in your git ignore file. So now if you open that ignore file, if you see, these are the files that we have specified that we should not take this to your GitHub repository. And if you are making any changes also, so this will not be considered. Okay, so this will not even show as a staged commit or file changes when you are trying to push it. So this is all about your Playwright folder structure. Hope you guys have understood the concept. In the next video, we are going to discuss which are the different browser actions that we can perform using Playwright. Thank you for watching this video. See you in the next one.